Hello guys, welcome again to the channel, and we'll have some more of the deck techs for the upcoming rotation in the standard format, and with the introduction of the new set Bloomburrow. We'll explore again the new cards. Let's go with the cute creatures and going also with the tribal kind of setup. So I made this initial list, which we call this one as the Orzhov bats, or more like just like a typical black-white aggro deck, since the archetype has somewhat existed in the late months prior to the upcoming rotation this July. That is the third week of the month, and I've checked some reference list out of that from the MTG top 8 website results, and also integrated some of the new cards you can see here, which are highlighted in the red frame. So we're going to do a rundown of our deck tech for today, which include 26 creatures, 2 enchantments, 5 instants with of course spot removals included, and 2 planeswalkers with Lena of the Veil in the main deck, and 2 sorceries with 23 lands for our mana base to be used to somewhat do a consistent curve of this deck. So we're going to check on our 2 drops here. Let's check it a bit. Let's view the grid version. So we have 12 2 drops. Unfortunately, we didn't really have a 1 drop in the build initially, but do take note that more of the spoilers appearing, we might have more of these options and might do some changes on the current deck list. So first off is of course our Caustic Bronco, which has been popularized by the Golgari deck, and good news that it is still not going to rotate in this format, and so we're going to of course utilize it for our best 2 drops. And at the same time, it goes also to get you card advantage because of the revealing the top card whenever it attacks and put it into your hand, and more so it can also become a good damage source if you'll be able to saddle it for 3 and have your opponent lose that much life for that card revealed by this creature. So for the next 2 drops, we have 4 copies of the Deep Cavern Bat. So probably this is the best 2 drop in the deck that defines the tribal bat setup, because it's not only going to have a 1-man flyer but also gets you to check out your opponent's play, remove their best card, for example for their succeeding turns or their next turn probably, or what will be their next play, and then hold it until you get also to establish your board setting. So with this deck, we need of course to add these 4 copies in the build to make sure that we can be able to do a consistent 2 drop on this, and later on benefit from our other 2 drop, which we call this one as the Valley Quest Caller, a new card from the Bloomburrow set. So this card would also have you a 2/3, so for 2, and the bonus is that it can be able for you to have your bats get ++1 or sort of an anthem effect. And the good thing is that it's not legendary, so means multiple copies of this would also get itself to buff, because the buff effect would also affect rabbits or the rabbits you control. So having 2 copies of this in the board gets each of them 3/4, and also a good board setup and also an attack, which I think would make your Deep Covered Bat a 3/3, for example, with 2 of this in the battlefield. So the bonus also of course is that when it enters the battlefield, you get to scry 1, so having also a fix of your top card or your next card draw is also essential to have, especially in an aggro deck. And next for our 3 drop, we have 3 copies of Bishop of the Schism. I can't really avoid to not include this because of the value on itself. It is basically gets you card effects and gets you aboard with 1/1 white vampire tokens, depending on the number or the life totals, or depending on the setup. But at most time, if you'll be able to gain life for against your opponent, then you can have this card effects to draw to your better spells or your spot removals or planeswalkers, for example. And then 4 copies of the 3 drop, that is Sanguine Evangelist, which can also produce a bat on its own, because when it enters your dice, you get a 1/1 bat creature token with flying. At the same time, the battle cry effect would get your creatures pumped with a +1/+0 effect whenever this attacks. So that with that setup, we have the new card, which is the Zoraline Cosmos Scholar, the Bat Cleric from Bloomburrow. I decided to have 3 copies of this in the build, but the good thing is that having also to curve this one early on, or just to cast this for 5 mana, for example, because of its ability that Whenever it enters or attacks, you may pay 1 white and black and pay 2 life, and then you will be able to return target non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter. So in effect, the early turns, for example, you'll get your cavern bot killed in an instance. You can then use Zoraline's ability to get it back again to do another ATB effect to get rid of your opponent's best spells. And the bonus also is that whenever a bot you control attacks, you will be able to gain 1 life. So with this card, for example, you get to get the life link, you get also to get life gain with the Zoraline's static ability trigger. So for that, we check on the 4 drops, which I only included the only copy of Shieldred because of course not any aggro deck would benefit if you'd have the Shieldred in your main deck. And for the 5 drop is of course the Bat God. So we need to have an icon in this deck, which we call Aklasot's Tempest's Betrayal, as a good choice for this kind of build. And that it would also have a good threat, recursing threat also, and have your opponents discard cards and create you some bat tokens with flying if they would be able to discard an unland card. So also killing it would get you to have this transform into Temple of the Dead, which you can just pay 1 later on to have them return back to Aklasot's Deepest Betrayal. Now for the only enchantment in the deck, which we can also have a good creature source, is your Virtue of Loyalty. You can then reventure it for a 2/2 Knight creature with Vigilance token, and later on cast it for the hard cast to have your pump effects at the beginning of your end step to your creatures. Now for the spot removals, again I've included some of the best still rotation proof spot removals in the standard format for black, which is cut down and go for the throat, and I've also included shoot the sheriff for mid for a single copy, where in an instance that you would need to kill artifact creatures, then this would be your best answer against their setup. And for the Planeswalkers and sorceries, which of course do the function of spot removals and discard effects with Liana of the Veil, of course, and including the new card Fell, which is a sorcery version of the Murder. You can destroy any target creature. I've also included somewhat of a tech card, Annihilating Glare, because we could be able to destroy also Planeswalkers, but you can only pay 1 black and then sacrifice a creature or artifact. But in this instance, your best target here to sacrifice would be your copy of the Sanguine Evangelist. For example, you can sacrifice this, and when it dies, you will also create a token creature, and later on, just use Zoraline to pay 1 in white and black and pay 2 life to return it back to the battlefield and do another trigger with its ETB effects. Now for the lands, we have some typical black-white choices, some mana fix. So we are losing the black-white fix from Crimson Bow, and it's then replaced by 4 copies of Caves of Koilos, along with of course Concealed Courtyard as your main black-white fix in your early turns, as well as some top lands to do some value later on with the Restless Fortress, as it can also become an attacker on its own, and Shadowy Backstreet as sort of the fix for dual land that can also surveil one to get you ahead of your card draw fix with the surveil. And of course, I've decided to add this black and white uncommon from the new set, Bloomburrow, because it can also get you some value. It might be not be able to cast non-creature spells, but with the mana fix, and later on you can sacrifice this to look at the top 6 cards of the library and then get to reveal a bat or a mouse or rabbit card from among them and put the rest in the random order. So your best target here would be Aklasot's, since this is considered also a bat creature type, and then put it into your hand. As well as also Mudflat Village, you can just return target bat, lizard, rat, or squirrel card from graveyard to your hand, and Aklasot's will be your best target here in case that it was able to die or discarded. For example, you can just pay this to return it to your hand and do some value later on. So that is the total of 23 lands, with the inclusion also of the basics of plains, that is 3 copies, and also that of swamp is another 3 copy in the deck. Now let's check on the mana curve of this build. We have 2.7 average, more of 2 drops and 3 drops. As you can notice, I mentioned earlier, we have 12 2 drops and also including here the 2 mana cost spot removals, of course. And for the color distribution, we can have more of the black of the setup because of 23 black source and 17 for white, but the producers here are pretty much aligned also with black for 21 and 18 for white. And last but not least are your tokens. We have again the black token, black bot I mean, for the Evangelist producing also for Aklasot's, Knight token for the Virtue, and the Vampire token as produced by the Preacher of the Schism. So I guess that's pretty much it for this initial deck list of our Orzhov bat deck or bat aggro with a value for this kind of build, and pretty sure though that we can still have to improve this as more of the cards from the Bloomburrow set are revealed, and we're gonna have more options to do so in the upcoming posting and video editing of this deck build. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any ideas or information to share, just comment down below on this video, as we can have a good discussion and have this one visit this account also for our previous or other deck builds that was also done on this account from the Archideck website. So I think that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching, and see you guys on the next video.